And then we talk about daddy. Daddy's side, there was Papa and Mama Mohair. Papa was daddy's daddy. I remember him where Odell's house is now used to be nothing but an open land with a tree right in the center, a big tree. And Papa used to farm that. He used to grow crops there. And I remember I used to be out there with him, walking behind him. He had his horse or his mule and this big wooden plow with the big steel head on, and I'd be walking behind him, kind of walking in his footsteps, Uh, uh, and then for some reason, he really liked me for some reason. I remember when he was on his deathbed, he went to see me. And I remember going in there. I was a little boy. I might have been 3 years old, 4 years old. But I remember him just holding my hand, and Daddy took me in there to see him, right before he passed. I don't know how much long it was before he passed, but I can remember all of those things. And Daddy had two brothers, Uncle Taff, who worked at the college. He was a master salad maker, and he was married to Aunt Mandy, but his first wife was Therabelle. And Therabelle was a stone alcoholic, but she is the care of us for a while after Mama passed, But Daddy had to fire her because she stayed drunk all the time. So he literally fired her. And but there was Uncle Taff and there was Uncle Ed. Ed was the baby boy who had a learning disability. I think Ed graduated from Fred Moore High School about 12 times. He was he was a senior for 12 years in a row with everybody, but everybody liked Ed. And Daddy had an older brother named JD that I never met. Then he had Aunt Maybelle out of Oklahoma City, Aunt Maybelle and Uncle Joe. And you talking about sweet, sweet, sweet. Aunt Maybelle never had kids, but her and Uncle Joe worked for Fred Jones, the big Lincoln and Mercury deal out of Oklahoma. And even when Aunt Maybelle retired, they paid her until the day she died. Isn't that something?
Wow.
Yeah, they took care of her. Yeah, they took care of her. Then there was Aunt Tulum, which is Aunt Alavine, Hayward Jr.'s mother, and R.J. and Herman's mother, and Betty Mae's mother. She was married to Uncle Hayward, which stayed up the street on Ruth Street.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was Aunt Babe, who lived with Mama Mohair, who is Maud Jr. That's who Maud is. Aunt Babe, Aunt Babe was married but never had kids. And I can't remember her husband's name. And then there was Aunt Elzada,
mm-hmm.
who lived right on the corner. And she had kids, Odell, Lamar, Melvin, Carol Jean, Pat, Valerie, and Wilma, the one that died last year in Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And she was married to Robert Lee, Melvin's daddy, and to Dave Johnson. And then Aunt Hazel. Aunt Hazel was married to Uncle Vernon, and they lived in Pilot Point. And she had a lot of kids. And then they moved to Forney. And then there was Aunt Clara May Brown, who was married to J.C. Punch at one time, and that's where Sugar Bear comes from. Gwen, our cousin Gwen in Kansas City, as Gwen, Alpha Don, and Sharon. Yeah. And so that was Daddy's side of the family. So just growing up, man, it was just, we had so much fun. Just kids, doing kid things, and glad when family came around, we would have dinner every day together as a family, It wasn't fixing you this and fixing you that. You ate what was prepared, or you didn't eat it all.
That's right.
You know, it's nothing like it is. Nothing like it is today. You know, little Johnny want this and little Mary want that. It didn't happen. You eat this or you don't eat.
And you know,
And then
it's the
conversation.
exactly I'm thinking about, I think about when I came home to Denton, the joy that I would have walking from 705 Chambers to 528 Roof Street, and then running over to Simmons, and just, I mean, Daddy would tell me when I went over Todd's house, son, don't eat all that frosted flakes, don't drink all that milk. I go over Uncle Aurel's house, Daddy would tell me, son, don't drink all the tea. You know, it was always basically Ain't Low and Ain't Billy made me feel, baby, come on in. What you want? What you need? What can I get for you? Nenny, you hungry? What you need? But Daddy was like, son, don't do this. Son, don't do that. I don't know. Maybe I was just eating too much. I don't know. But it was just a joy to be able to go over a family member's house and be around family and eat good and laugh. I used to just love just sitting around talking to Papa and Nene. That gave me so much joy. It wasn't like unfortunately I see my children, they will speak to their grandparents, but they don't just hang around and talk to them. I have to like push them to sit down and talk to your grandparents. Me, I would just sit there and I would want to hear what Papa had to say, what Nini had to say. And it gave me so much joy. Even my grandmother here, Mama B, I spent a lot of time with her growing up, just being in her presence. And people used to always tell me, you act old, boy, you act. And I think it's because I just enjoy being around older people. And I got some of their customs and their ways. But I say all of that to say, when you would be around all of the family, I mean, it was a huge family, sounds like on Granny Ruth May's side, and it was a huge family on Pawpaw's side. And it seems like most of y'all were right there concentrated, Hill Street, Roof Street, you know, and it was just a huge, just everybody would get together. And back then, as you were just alluding to, it wasn't a whole bunch of Sunday was respected. So families probably went to church and spent time together versus I gotta go watch this game, or I gotta go do this, or I got an AAU competition. Families invested time together and they were intentional. And so as you describe this, Uncle Clifford, that's what I'm envisioning. That's what I'm seeing. And me and my wife always talk about how, you know, her siblings, all them college graduates, and they've moved away from Shreveport. So they're not near their mother and father. Their parents are happy and proud of what they've been able to go off and do. But at the same time, they're not there with their parents so their children can see their parents. I, as you know, live on the other side of Houston. So I don't see my mama on a regular. You shaking your head. Yeah, it took Uncle an hour to get to my house this weekend. So so you when you have this quote unquote upward mobility in our people, it has a blessing, but it also has a cost. It adds value, but it also has a cost. And I've always thought, even me and Henry have talked about it. Henry's career is taking him all over the country and all over the world, but he misses being at home. He misses being around family. And so it's you think about that stuff, it's like, man, you try to, you try to balance that. And so I don't want to jump to when you were, well, we'll do it later. When you were raising your children, I want to know how you instilled some of those same family values that you're mentioning. And what you mentioned, Papa never raised his voice. He never cursed. I'm not a cursor. My children have never heard me curse, but I didn't raise my voice a lot. And my wife will bring up how I tell her, you said your daddy never raised his voice, so why do you raise yours? I don't know, And so, but the point is, I'm seeing this pattern from the parents to your generation, not raising the voice, gentle, the loving. How did I know Papa worked a lot, but how were those values instilled in all of you all?
You know, I think both for me is I'm very observant. You know, I'm observing people when people think I'm not observing them. I've always been like that. But just the mannerism, uh, Daddy was such a gentle man, you know, but he meant what he said. He always mean what he say. If he tell you something, he meant it. If he give you his word, he meant it. And I think I've taken a lot of that on too. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. If I tell you I'm not, there's no need to ask me again, you know,
Right.
because it's not going to happen. But and I also remember growing up, man, on Friday nights, we would all get around the radio because we didn't have a TV. We'd all get around the radio and listen to boxing. Oh man, boxing. You know, it
Joe
would come
Louis.
on by Gillette, huh?
Joe Louis, huh?
Oh yeah,
The brown bomber.
box. Yes, boxing, and man, you just everybody be just around, just listening. You know, just it was so amazing, and you know the radio makes it so exciting anyway. It's you know because you can't see it, you just visualize, and you know, so visualization comes in a lot back during that time. And then I can remember when the first TV on the block was gotten by Miss Henrietta and Mr. Oliver Clark, baby brother Hoot, Oliver Jr.'s parents, you know, and he and I growing up, we were close. I was a runt because I was asthmatic. You know, I mean, I was sickly as a child growing up all the time. And I remember Daddy got me these asthma cigarettes. They had medicine in them. You light them and smoke them, but it would open up my lungs, you know. And me and Hoop were about the same age, but his birthday was on Christmas Day. And he was much bigger than me. But when I got 13, boom, you know, I caught up, you know, because I came out that asthma, all that asthma. But man, it was just something, you know, I was sick with that asthma. But then coming back to Mama, our birth mom, I remember she got sick and had to go to the hospital. And I remember on that Monday, all of us was outside, but RL was down to Mr. Burgess' house. They owned the Juicy Pig restaurant where RL worked and Daddy was a chef. And I remember Daddy coming around to each child, and I was watching him. I'm outside. We all outside. This is on a Monday. I never will forget it. And I saw him go to Clyde. Then I saw him go to Mary. Then he came to me. I guess we was outside getting ready to dig up stickers because Daddy was serious about digging up stickers with butter knives, digging up them goat head stickers, and he wanted you to go down to the root and pick them up. So we was all outside on this Monday morning. Then he came to me and told me that Mom had died. Then he went to Taft. And I remember I didn't cry until I ran over to Miss Irma's house. And Miss Irma was married to Loretta's daddy. We called him Pos. And I ran over there because every Monday she would take me downtown and buy me something because she played the piano for St. Emmanuel Church. And I ran over there and told, and then I just remember boo-hooing and crying, just crying. I was 9 years old, but I never will forget that. And I remember the Juicy Pig was closed on Monday and Tuesday, and that was Daddy's off days. And I remember that Mr. Birch, the owner of the Juicy Pig, came to the house and bought Daddy's check. I remember that like it was yesterday. But also, let me kind of go back a little, because Mama worked she was a domestic, and she worked for Warren Whitson and the McCalvies. Now, Warren Whitson, I think, used to be the mayor of Denton back in the 50s. And Mama worked for them and the McCalvies, which they were, Warren married Miss McCalvy's daughter, or it was in the family some way, and they owned a bottling company or a can company which made sodas, you know. So I remember that. But then I remember the funeral, Mama's funeral. And I remember me sitting in there and my nose started bleeding. I remember Dolores Jones, who used to be married to John Matt Williams, and she was married to Leonard Jr. Logan for a while. But I remember she took me back and stopped my nose from bleeding, you know, back in the bathroom. And I remember it was Reverend Gibbs or Reverend Tisdale, one of those who preached the funeral, told Mary that she was the woman of the house now. And Mary was 3 years, Mary was two years older than me. I was 9 at that time, so Mary was only 11, you know. And in retrospect, I think about, that's really something heavy to tell a child that young that they gonna be so, and I think personally, I think a lot of that really fell on Mary really heavy, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of the things that Mary went through was behind that statement. Words are the most powerful force in the universe, you know, and you sit up and think about that stuff. I said, man, you know, I mean, I didn't think about that till I got older, because right then I was 9 years old. But I thought about it when I got older. I said, man, that probably had a profound effect on Mary, you know. And then I remember Mom dying, and we all were going through in our own ways, and Daddy was trying to find somebody to watch us, you know, because he had to work. So I remember Therabelle, he'd got Therabelle, she could cook, man, she could cook. But she'd pass out at the house all the time. She'd be drunk. So Daddy had to fire her. And you can just imagine all the women that wanted Daddy, because he was handsome, debonair, you know. Taft looked more like him than all of us, but he was handsome and debonair, and you know. And I remember him starting dating Miss Brooks, Miss Parthenia Mae Brooks, who was my English teacher at Fred Moore High School, and she's a very attractive lady. Music teacher, very attractive. The English teacher, but she was a music teacher. And I remember it was Christmas of that year, 56. Maud was only 8 months old when Mama died. But I remember we went to Oklahoma for Christmas to Aunt Maybell's and Uncle Joe's. And I remember Miss Brooks went too. And I remember she gave me gave all of us a Christmas gift, but I remember her giving me a wallet. I think it was a Red Ryder wallet or something. And I looked at that wallet and I remember saying to myself, I don't want this thing. It's something how you remember all those things, you know. But it didn't, I mean, their little courtship didn't last long. And then I can remember Jewel James' mother, stay on the hill, very attractive, Bessie, very attractive lady. She liked her some George Mohair. Yeah, he liked her some George Mohair. You know, Dad was debonair, smooth, and a lot of people don't know, but Daddy used to sing in a quartet. Daddy used to sing in a quartet. I remember them with they white jackets and they black pants. It was Daddy and Vertus Johnson, and there's two other guys. I just can't think of it. I can't visualize the two other guys. It might have been Roy Leeshaw. He might have been one of them. Man, I can't think of who the other two were. And it might have been James. I really can't remember, but I know it was Burtis Johnson and Daddy. But they used to sing in this quartet, and Daddy would have his bangs and had his Murray hair and his bangs out back. And yeah, it's just amazing time. If you could visualize it, it was something.
I'm
But
just
just
thinking
the
about the
times, man.
pawpaw that I knew, and I'm visualizing that
Yeah.
pawpaw. This super cool George Mohair, the debonair. Yeah, he probably still walking slow even then. Oh man, so let me. I'm glad we can reflect on this, but I have to, because of the grief videos that I've been doing. I gotta ask these questions. When Granny Ruth May transitioned, I think you told me August of 1956.
Yes.
August of 1956. As you just mentioned, Ahmaud would have been 8 months old. So she never got a chance to meet her birth mother. Uh, my daddy would have been 6 years old, or five, almost going into six. You would have been 9, as you mentioned. And Mary, who was born in 1944, would have been 12, as you've already mentioned. Uncle Arrell, who was born in 1940, would have been, 16 years old. Uncle Clyde, born in 1938, he's 18. Matter of fact, what year did Uncle Clyde get married? Do you
He got
remember?
married June the 29th, 1960. Ariel got married October the 11th, 1959.
1959. And so the two of them being the oldest, they were not married yet. What I'm curious to know is how, and if you may or may not know this, but let me ask the question first. How did you process at that tender age of 9? How did you process the transitioning of your mother? Do you recall?
No, I don't. It's like it's kind of vague.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I often wonder if, you talk about, you go to the military and PTSD, and how you will black out, or your mind will be a blackout of those painful experiences. And I've heard people relate it not just to military combat veterans, but also related to childhood experiences. If you were abused as a child, or things of that nature. And so I've also heard it connected to these kinds of experiences in grieving. And I even with me, I don't have any memories of my parents being married. And sometimes I wonder if I've done that subconsciously to block out the hurt. When a child learns their parents are getting divorced, that can be, a painful, depending on no matter how old you are. It could be 18 or 8. It can be devastating. And so oftentimes I wonder, because I literally have no memories of my parents being married. And so all of these things with daddy transitioning, and the way I have processed not just his transitioning, but also my parents being divorced, because I fully understand it. If I don't process my parents getting divorced the right way, I will bring that stuff into my marriage. And that was something that I saw before me and Andre even got married. And so I'm always curious to know how people have dealt with the grief. So that deals with that. So did you and your siblings ever discuss Granny Ruth May and her transitioning as y'all got older?
Not that I know of. None. But when you talk about that, I think that's how Mary acted out a lot. As she got older, she acted out a lot. You know,
And it's
and
it's
then
it's, it's amazing, and a family. I want to try to really hit this, because this is so key. The devil is not omnipresent.
Right.
The devil is not omniscient. Only God is. But the devil pays attention. And the devil fully understands how to attack from one generation to another and how to attack in those areas of hurt, you know. And so I listened to this and what Papa, I mean, just imagine what he would go through. You know, your wife is transitioned, you raising these children, and you're trying to figure out how am I going to work and raise these children. How, and he probably even took him time to deal with the hurt himself,
Right.
because immediately the bills don't stop because a loved one has gone to glory. And then on top of that, you got to love on these children and help them through this situation. So, you know, I think about this stuff. I think I'm more sensitive to it because my parents divorced and we moved back to Houston and I was away from you all. So it was me, mama, and Tia. And of course, me, mom, and Tia and Granny. Uh, and Granny was always there for us. And matter of fact, Daddy told me later in life that Granny made a promise to Daddy that she would always be there for us. And so I just you look at even though divorce can be painful and how it hurt, but God still provided. God still loved us through. And I know, you know, because my mama, if my mama would not have been a kind of mama to keep us in church, to have us in Bible study, then Tia and I wouldn't have got any kind of spiritual foundation for God to be able to work with us and keep us through all that stuff. Because I've seen people go through the same thing, divorce, and end up in a completely different, you know, way. I look at the people I grew up with. A lot of folks that I grew up with are either deceased, in and out of jail. Not everybody, but a lot. And so that neighborhood, I could have ended up in, you know, in the same situation, but God. And so family, how did you all enjoy those first two interviews with Uncle Clifford? I know for me, several things stood out. I always knew my grandfather could sing, knew that, but I did not know my grandfather was getting a whole bunch of applications. So you all do me a huge favor. As I said previously, let's share with the family all that we're getting from these videos. Like the video, comment on the video, and share it with other family members. Let's get the word out. Shoot that email and let's keep this going. Love y'all. Peace.